Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I've faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone. For today's episode, as I was trying to think about what I wanted to talk about today, for me, it's usually the easiest to talk about something that's the most relevant, something that I'm going through. That's just what's really easy to talk about. That's what's top of mind. So what I was thinking about here currently, we're in the busy season. We've had quite a few rain delays, quite a few good rains, which has been very helpful for us. I'm very grateful for that. But the thing about rain, especially in a busy season, when we're in planting, trying to get the crop planted, trying to get the crop sprayed, everything that needs to be done this time of year, it makes those good days, the days in between the rain days, pretty stressful for the fact that, we've got a limited window to try to get things accomplished and to get after it and get things done. And so when, like I said, those rain days are good. They're very welcomed after you're working really hard. But I've had to put in quite a few long hours on the days that are good when we're trying to get after it. Like I said, get things planted, finish up planting, finish up spraying. So we've had a lot of long hours, and usually long hours can sometimes mean time away from the family. So essentially what I'm going to be talking about today is the family work-life balance. And so when I talk about balance between family and work, I also want to mention that this could be just balancing anything that's a priority to you. So for me, pretty much in my life, I've got my family and I've got my work. My work consists of basically anything that might take me away from my family, whether that's, anything on the farming side, anything that maybe it's some custom farming, or maybe it's working on Pioneer Farm or this new business, anything that might involve taking me away from my family. For some, you might have a priority, might be hunting, might be a hobby, might be something that you really like to do on your off time. Yeah, that's kind of another thing in there that basically takes time. So that's what I'm talking about here, is kind of that balance between anything that you have your time spent on, whatever that looks like. Basically for me, I've got two areas of my life where I spend most of my time, and that's family and that's work. And so I want to kind of talk about that balance a little bit, kind of some different concepts that I like to think about or try to work through things. And so I've had this concept presented to me a couple of years ago, and I've really tried to latch onto it and tried to remember it, especially when times get busy, or maybe even before times get busy. So I want to talk about this concept of, the balance. And balance is kind of a tricky word, but we'll kind of work through that. But the reason I like to use the word balance is, so think of it this way, and this is kind of how it was presented to me, is think of like a bank account. We've got bank accounts, multiple bank accounts probably, to where first you have to make a deposit into that bank account. You've got to have a balance in that bank account before you can make a withdrawal. And if you make too many withdrawals, that bank account balance is going to go negative. Think of that feeling. What does that feel like when we've all been there, where you forgot to maybe overdrawn a little bit to where that bank account balance go negative? You kind of freak out. You panic a little bit. You try to figure out whatever you can do to fix that, to get that bank account positive again. And so you've got money back in that account. So you got to make a deposit. You got to put something back into it. And so that's where I want to think about is whenever, say, you've got to basically consider your family relationships between work and family, consider that kind of like a bank account balance. You need to make the deposits before you can make the withdrawals, because we're all going to make the withdrawals. You're always going to be spending your time on family and work, but you're always going to be making those withdrawals where you're gone basically away from the family. For me, it's especially on the work in the busy seasons. And so I try to think of it in a way that I can always try to maybe spend time with them. What does a deposit look like in this instance? So for us, we had couple weeks ago, I actually went out. I considered this a deposit. That's why I didn't put up too much of a fight. Is I went out with my wife and the kids, and we went out to a family graduation. And we had to take off on an early Saturday morning. Drove 4 hours out to a family graduation, and to be honest, it was a great day to be at home. I could have been spraying. I could have been doing a lot of other things besides sitting in a car and going to a graduation. And whatever it is, I had a really hard time going, to be honest. But I knew that we're going to have times where I'm going to need to actually make a withdrawal. I'm going to need to be busy doing things elsewhere. So I saw that as an opportunity to maybe make a deposit. Or here recently, just this last weekend, we took a Saturday off and we went out with the kids. We went up to Sioux City and we went up and kind of did some fun stuff. And even that Sunday, we went fishing with the boys, and they really enjoyed it. That things like that, to where I can take my time and spend it on them, that's a deposit. That's a deposit into the bank account. Think of that as $100 going in your bank account, $1,000, whatever that looks like. So then, whenever you make that withdrawal, that's going to be, maybe if you're putting $1,000 in, you might be, depends on the withdrawal. If, like for me, this last week, I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday where I was working all day and I was pretty much gone. I came home just in time, maybe just in time to put the boys to bed, and then I maybe even went back out. But I was gone in the mornings and I wasn't around to help get them out the door very much. And so I definitely made that withdrawal. Maybe if I put $1,000 in, I might have took 800 out. And this last week was pretty rough on things, and that's why it might have actually been a negative. Maybe I took withdrawal of $1,200 out. I'm just trying to use numbers here to put this in perspective, because that's the concept that I want to come across as, we've got to think of this as we got to make the deposits before we can make the withdrawals. And say maybe we do make too many withdrawals. Like for me, I probably made too many withdrawals this week. And that balance, you got to really think of it in a way as you got to read the relationships. You got to between probably your wife and kids, and the ones that are basically, I'd say, suffering a little bit because you're working so much, or you're gone, or you're making that withdrawal. You got to read that to see once if that it's actually negative or positive, or okay, maybe I worked a couple days and we're still doing all right. Everything's good on the home front, but maybe I worked too much. And so for us, Wednesday, I had 2 days prior to that where I worked quite a bit. And I was gone, and things were pretty stressful. Wednesday morning, kind of had a rough morning getting out the door, and I was gone all day. And then it was just kind of a rough day. You could tell everybody was uneasy, and not to put it in a negative way, but I could definitely see that Ellen was not happy. I was away from the boys, and I was doing the best that I can, but I had some things that I felt like I needed to get done. So I probably made too many withdrawals. And things were definitely a negative state. Things were not great. And so that account went negative, and I thought to myself, okay, how can I get this to be back positive again? I need to fix this, because it's not comfortable when nobody's getting along. Everybody's frustrated. We're kind of at each other's throats. We're making those little comments here and there to get on each other's nerve. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's not what we want. That's not what I wanted. What I wanted is to be able to get the work done, but to be able to still be around for my family and to still have everybody happy, essentially. And so I thought to myself, okay, what can I do to help out this relationship? Well, I can maybe Thursday morning, I can take the boys to daycare. I've got some time. I got my things accomplished for the day on Wednesday. I got some time. I can take the kids to daycare, or I could pick them up, or I could take our oldest to a basketball camp during the middle of the day to help out that relationship, to take things back to a positive level. And so that's why I wanted to kind of have you think about this. What does it look like in your life? What is the balance between work and your family? What does that look like? Have you taken too many withdrawals this busy season? Have you thought about ways that you can offset those withdrawals by putting your time, energy, and focus back into your family? What can you do that they're going to get value from? And that's what I want to shift gears into next. I think this is important. Obviously, this is needs to be taken within context. If there's certain times, like I said, every season that you're in is always going to be a challenging one. Let's be honest. There's always going to be challenges in every single season that you're in. But I feel like this current season, like I said, has kind of been a challenge because of the rain that we have had. It's been great to have that kind of maybe day or two off when you get that rain, and it's a relief, and I can make that deposit back into the family. But it makes that time when we have the good days to get out there and we need to be planting or we need to be in the field, it makes those days even more stressful because you're trying to get, probably think of it, trying to get twice as much done in half the time. It just makes it more stressful. Let's be honest. It just makes it more stressful trying to work later hours, trying to do as much as you can, trying to run around with your head cut off, trying to do as much as you can in a little amount of time. And it makes that current season stressful. So our current season has been stressful. So I've been thinking about this a lot. And so for me, I want to think about it in a way that's what can I do to my family that's going to provide value to them to put that deposit back in. And it's, like I said, it's different for each person. Maybe your wife is, and I want to consider here, if you've ever actually heard or listened to or read the book called Five Love Languages. Sounds like a cheesy book, but it's also a really good one. If you are really considerate about maybe your spouse or maybe just even your family in general, what are the things that they actually prioritize, that they actually basically feel like they're receiving love from? Because if you feel like you're receiving love from, that's essentially a deposit here. That's what we're talking about. So I feel like a big one for us is the time, quality time, or maybe it's acts of, not necessarily acts of love, but just acts of doing something, a service or something like that. So for me, I try to think of that as a way to maybe I can provide value back to Ellen, to my wife, by taking the kids to daycare in the morning, maybe letting her sleep in on a Saturday because that's what she likes to do. And that's value to her, kind of showing her I appreciate things, giving a deposit back into that account, trying just to help the overall relationship make things more positive. And so consider your relationships, whether, like I said, your family, maybe your wife, or maybe it's the opposite, maybe it's your husband. What are things that you can do for them to basically show them that you love them, show them that you care for them and you're considerate of their feelings and the situations and things that they're going through? So really kind of keep that in mind. What does that look like in your situation? Like I said, for us, I'd say it's quality time and maybe like acts of service. And so those are things that I feel like Ellen provides value in. And so I can do those things to kind of help our relationship and help the family work balance all together. And so that's things that I've really tried to keep in mind as we've gotten into this busy season, and as I've definitely made probably too many withdrawals. And it's going to happen. Let's be honest. It's especially in farming and ranching. If you own a business, if you're a business owner in general, whatever that looks like, we're always going to have busy seasons, but we're usually typically going to have some off seasons. And for us, and it's one of those things to where like I actually feel like in our relationship with me and my family is I feel like I try to do a really good job about being around, especially in the mornings, getting the kids out the door and trying to be around even for bedtime, even if that means coming home for bedtime and then going back to work for a little bit. I try my best to be around. And that's really great. I feel like it's a good thing for me to do. It's good for our relationships. What makes it a struggle is when I'm not around. It was because, Ellen and the boys are probably used to me being around 95% of the time. So when I'm not, that makes it really hard because, okay, maybe consider a relationship where I'm just picking on the husband or the father because, that's the perspective that I see things from, is maybe you're gone 60, or I should say maybe 40% of the time. You're around 60%, 40% of the time you're gone. That time when you're gone probably isn't quite as bad because that's what you're kind of used to. Let's keep that in mind, is it's usually the things that we're not used to, the things that are outside of the norm, that are different from where are basically our normal. Those are the times that are hard. Those are the times that are uncomfortable. And so what probably makes it really hard just for us in our relationships is because I try to be around a lot. So when I'm gone, it's hard. And let's face it, we've got 3 wild, full of energy boys. And so when I'm gone and Ellen has to take care of them, I mean, it's definitely, I might be the one out doing the work, the physical labor, getting my hands dirty, long hours. But let's be honest, I think she's got probably the harder end of the deal there. And so we need to be considerate of just the overall relationships, considerate of the things that maybe our spouses are going through, and just be aware of the situation and to be aware of what we can do to better that. Now, the last one I want to kind of talk about here is basically the alignment because there's kind of a couple different words that I feel like get thrown around here. Is we got the balance between work and family, but we've also got the alignment, because balance, let's face it, it's never completely balanced. It's always going back and forth and back and forth. Like I said, a bank account, it's always, withdrawals and deposits, It's never just flat. It's never even. It's never perfectly balanced. So balance can be a tricky word, like I mentioned before. But the thing about balance, and I feel like alignment is also another good word that you could substitute there, is the alignment is maybe everything that you're doing, maybe your current portion of where you spend your time between family and work needs to be in alignment with your goals. So for some people, maybe your kids are young like ours. Our kids are still pretty young, and that's a great time to be around with them. But maybe you're actually prioritizing in your mind saying, I'd rather actually work now, maybe be away from a little bit more as they're younger. Maybe they just don't remember as much. Maybe they're pretty little. So I'd rather be, working more now, spending time away from them now so we can build for our future, maybe kind of build to save up so I can basically be in a position that maybe later in life, maybe when our kids get it, closer to 10 years old, 15 years old, whatever that looks like, I can be around. I can be around for the sporting events. I can be around to mentor them. I can be around to really help them in that time of their life. And so I think it's your time, wherever you spend it, it needs to be in alignment with your current goals, with your current vision for the future, vision for your family, even vision for your operation, your business as well. Especially when it comes to starting a new business. Say like for me, I'm starting Pioneer Farmer. I'm just trying to get this thing off the ground. I've had to put a lot of time into this. And I've still tried to, keep that alignment or keep that balance, whatever you want to call that word, keep that relationship positive with the family. But there's been times where I've had to put a lot of time into the new business. And so just trying to keep that in mind that, maybe this is just a short season. This is just a current season to where I'm going to have to spend some more time here. And that balance is going to be off, but yet it is still in alignment with where we want to go. So I think that's something to keep in mind is, kind of the difference between balance and alignment, and the alignment as in where you want to go and how your time is basically in alignment to where you want to go in the future. That's kind of some things that I'm going through. I mean, that's just my personal stories. That's the things that we're currently dealing with. So think about in your life, what does this look like? What does this look like as dealing with the relationships with your family? Are you struggling to keep that in alignment to where you want to go in the future? And maybe are you struggling to be present? Be present with your kids when you are home. That's definitely one thing that I struggle with, is even on the days that I'm trying to be home, make deposits, be with them, spend time with them. It's always hard to necessarily be present, but that's one thing that I feel like we're always going to struggle with, especially as husbands and business owners, fathers, is to definitely be present. I always struggle with that, and I want to just make that note that I am not perfect in this. I have definitely not perfected this. This is something that I think people are always going to struggle with a little bit, but I think the big thing here is to be aware, be considerate, and to know what can you do to improve things. And especially when you're going through a difficult time like we did on this Wednesday particularly, it was not great. We got the kids out the door, and I was not in a good mood, to put it lightly. And I just stepped back, and I'm like, I just get so pissed at myself because that's not what I want. That's not how I want to be perceived from my kids. And so I definitely I'm trying to be aware of those times so that way I don't think I'm ever going to take them away, but hopefully I can maybe prevent, from those happening as much. So I think that's the important thing here, is to be aware. So as I wrap this up, I just hope you've found value in this. I hope you can take some of these things, maybe implement them to basically improve your relationships with your family. Make it a positive balance. Make sure it's in alignment with where you want to go in the future. So I will catch you next time. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share, or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.